It's Tuesday.
Woo-hoo! Happy Tuesday. How you doing, sister?
This is how I'm doing.
It is what it is.
Basically, it's my life. So how are things in Florida? Are you raining?
We are very raining. Earlier today, we had it. Everyone thought it was a typhoon.
Oh, God.
It was pretty dark here. It's still dark, but it got super dark, and the water was going like everywhere. It kind of gave me a little bit of flashback.
I know,
You know how I
PTSD.
about storms, so I had to.
How you were doing with the rain?
Yeah, I probably have to have a shot of tequila after the show.
Well, I'm not drinking until October, so enjoy that.
Say what now?
I'm not drinking until October.
Oh, so okay.
Don't even ask. I don't even know why I do these things to myself.
Well, a little tequila helps me along the way once or twice a week, so it's okay.
So nice.
I'll drink for you.
Please do, because obviously, you know, I did a little too much on my birthday. So, yeah, I don't need to drink anymore.
I did good. I'm very proud of myself.
And by my birthday, I mean our birthday. But anyways.
Yes, our birthday. I know it's so funny when you say my birthday and then it's our birthday and whatever. It's the birthday. The birthday. I'm excited.
I'm
very excited. Our guest today is I've known Michael since when did I do it? Huh?
Michel. I was saying it wrong too.
No, I'm sorry. Did I say Michael? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I want to say Michael.
I know. Hi, honey. I've known him. I did James Beard boot camp. That had to have been 2015, 16.
He's not. Yes, you're correct.
Yes. What an amazing experience. We were in Arkansas, and the Walmart family kind of was our sponsorship along that way. But I got to meet some amazing chefs and also find out a little bit more about myself when it comes to food advocacy and policy and being able to support in my little way. It wasn't much, but as much as I could during the times between traveling from the Caribbean. So I'm just excited for him to be on our show.
I don't think that we realize as chefs how much we are in the food advocacy space because we're approaching it from a for-profit lane. But we're definitely have, you know, I think I'm in the James Beard boot camp now, and in one of our sessions, they say 13% of food service workers are food insecure. So can you imagine like cooking food all day, but then being hungry or being worried or being concerned about what you're eating, when you're eating, how you're eating? And you know, a lot of restaurant owners, if we're honest, that's the main reason we have as much internal theft. I don't think that as many people are taking extra food home from work to be, you know, just jacked up individuals as the fact that they need to feed their families. Yeah. And so a little bit more about Michel. I don't know how he sleeps.
He doesn't. I mean, he's amazing.
He's on 5 boards. He's written 3 cookbooks. He's got James Beard Awards. He's writing CNN articles. He's started a World Food Service Organization. He's getting grants and, you know, being what I would like to say a thought leader in the space of food security and nutrition security. So I'm going to bring him.
And also, he made time for us.
I know.
So it's my privilege.
Yes, I appreciate that. So we're going to bring him on so that he can tell us a little bit more about himself.
Awesome.
Hi.
Hey, Erica.
Hi, love. How are you? Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Thank you. Thank you for being on our show.
Thank you guys for having me.
I'm so happy that you're here.
Well, thank you, man. It's good to be here.
Awesome. I just want to open it up to you and let you introduce yourself, and really we'll jump right in from that point.
Cool. Awesome. So I'm Michel Nischan, and I'm a reformed restaurateur. I spent a lot of time almost 40 years in the restaurant business. And, both my parents were farmers from the South Central Midwest who had kind of fallen on hard times when there was that whole policy change that favored larger scale agriculture, because everybody was worried now that there had been a World War I and a World War II, there'd be a World War III. So I worked what was left of my grandfather's struggling farm, but I was lucky enough to grow up knowing what a ripe tomato was. So I made a lot of my career about that whole farm to table thing before those words were used in a sentence, just trying to find farmers, paying them in advance, cooking good food. And then my son, Chris, was diagnosed 25 years ago with type 1 diabetes. And that's where I made the whole connection between food and human health. It didn't take more than a couple of months when we changed our food strategy at home for me to realize I was feeding my customers things I wouldn't feed my family. So that was my first kind of change. My first advocacy was, how do we get a viable income for farmers and producers, many of whom are women? 68% of small scale farmers in America are women. Many of them are immigrant and refugee farmers. How do we get their awesome stuff into our restaurants and make sure that they have a viable living, turned into, how do I feed people something that doesn't make me feel like I'm going to be killing them? And then, I did that. I had this restaurant. Yeah, I don't think you guys were even born yet. It was in 1997 called Heartbeat Restaurant in the First W Hotel.
I was getting ready to meet Erica and start my culinary journey. So I was born.
All right, cool. All right, good. Well, anyway, so it was this kind of restaurant of well-being thing. Local, organic, sustainable, but we had no sugar, no flour, no butter, no cream, and had to answer that question: how do you make sauce and dessert? And we got 3 stars in the New York Times, 0 stars in the New York Post, got accused of being the food police, but it made us controversial. So I got invited to like all these public health think tanks. And that's where I learned about type 2 diabetes and its impact on people who struggle with low income and food insecurity. The family of 4 that runs out of SNAP or food stamps in the middle of the month, and they have $2 for all 4 people for dinner tonight. So it's basically 50 cents a person. A head of broccoli is $2 that's not going on the table. So that there was no business plan for that. I was able to do Heartbeat Restaurant because I had customers who could spend $30-40 an entree. But there's no business plan for that family that's $2 for all 4 people for dinner. So I founded Wholesome Wave. It's a 501c3 nonprofit. We're the guys who started when it was illegal, doubling SNAP benefits when spent on fruits and vegetables. We got all that changed. Now, not only is it legal, but it's federally funded in the permanent part of the Farm Bill. And then we do things like produce prescriptions. We just try to find different ways of spending public money to help people struggling with poverty so that we can all enjoy a ripe tomato. So that's what I do. There's no elevator pitch for it.
No, there isn't. But except that, I think the one thing that we have to be honest about is that COVID has definitely kind of unearthed some cracks in the food system. And so, that's why I was really happy about that article that you guys put out last week, I believe.
Yeah, it's a great point, Shanita, because everybody, a lot of people, and I've had conversations with folks from, frankly, all over the country, both sides of the aisle, diverse ethnicities, and so many people look at things like type 2 diabetes and heart disease and hypertension. Those are, I'll be okay. There's a medicine for that, or I really don't have to worry about it until 15 or 20 years down the road. I got time, but in this environment, it's like if you have those conditions, you die next week if you get COVID. I mean, it's like I think in March already in 17 states, 89.3% of everybody hospitalized with COVID in 17 states had either one or more of those conditions that I mentioned: heart disease, type 2 diabetes, hypertension, or obesity. So, all of those things can be prevented and frankly reversed through diet. But when you can't afford anything other than like Easy Mac or minute rice with cream of mushroom soup or ramen noodles with condensed milk stirred in to make it richer. And then you give your kids, a bag of snack chips before they go to bed so they're not crying hungry before they go to sleep. It ain't going to cut it, So it's a crazy time. It's just so weird.
It's a very crazy time. And the one thing that stood out to me in that article was that our food policy was established in the 1940s. Like, we have, as a government, taken a look at, what we're doing since the 40s. The weird thing for me is that I didn't realize that I was dealing with food insecurity or getting into this nutrition and healing your body with food until my youngest. So my youngest daughter was a preemie when she was about 17 months old. We realized that, what my doctor knew that she was going to be coming early, and they did all of the, took all the precautions. And I probably had more doctor's appointments than people, I always had the doctor. They were always monitoring and, taking scans and doing all that, giving me steroids and making sure. But what happened was that her trachea and her esophagus were malformed. So basically, when it came time for her to switch to solid food, she would aspirate. The food was going into her lungs, down her throat and into her stomach. But what that is when you're dealing with that, they classify your child as failing to thrive. That's child abuse. Yeah. So then you get put into a food management clinic, right? So now you got to go to food therapy. They want to watch how you feed them. And of course, I'm a chef. Literally, the only thing that they could say was, "Hey, you should probably make her eat at a table." That was the advice. But what I learned is that they were stressing me so bad about her gaining weight that if she wanted to eat at 3 a.m, we ate. And I had gotten to a point where I was just so stressed about going to that doctor's appointment and her not having any positive weight gain that I would give her anything. And a friend of mine is a nurse at the Children's Hospital in the other weight management clinic. And guess where all of her patients started? In my weight management clinic. And now they're in another clinic trying to get off of the Doritos and the Oreos and the chocolate milkshakes and eating at 2 a.m. and eating in the bed because there was a point in their life where their parents were like, "Oh, we just got to get you to gain weight. We just got to get you to gain weight. We got to get you to gain weight." And that's not the way that our medical system and our food system should be handling like weight challenges.
Agreed.
Luckily, I caught myself and I was like, wait, I know how to put weight on my child. So I'm not going to allow these people.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is, so much of the system is geared towards rapid results, right?
Right.
There's a pill for that, or if there's not, let's invent one. There should be a pill for that. That whole notion of just the service level kind of quick fix thing, rather than really relying on. And it's kind of a bummer, because it was really our grandparents who innately understood this connection between food and environmental and human health. I remember my grandmother did this thing where she put tomato seeds on a counter, a little pile of dirt, filled a glass of water, and then she's pointing at the dirt saying, "It's alive." And we're like, "Grandma, it's dirt." And she's like, "Well, without this, the dirt," and then she pointed to the water, and this won't grow. It's like, it's alive, She would, or she'd do stuff like cut a cucumber, and all the juice would run out all over the counter, and she'd have us run our fingers through it. I mean, we're little kids. And she'd say, "What's this?" And we go, "Juice." And she'd say, "Rain. It's rain. It's rain." It's just always trying to make a little bit of a deeper connection for us to help us understand that the best time to pick a cucumber is right after the rainfall. So, stuff like that. And there's also this, just wisdom of feeding and variety and diversity of foods that you eat when you're in an agricultural system that's super diversified, because you're relying on the agricultural system and the foods that you're growing to be able to trade and barter and sell to have financial viability for your family, but you're also feeding, part of that financial economic viability is you're feeding your entire family from the land. So it's in your primary interest to actually take care of the land. But now our agricultural system is such that, and a lot of people don't know this, the average lease for a large scale conventional farm. So think of those 2,000 to 6,000 acre corn farms you drive by in Nebraska when you're heading out west or coming from west to east, and the lease is a 1-year lease. It's like annual leases. So these types of leases and farmers moving around for a better deal incentivizes these farmers to extract as much as they can out of the land. There's no incentive whatsoever for them to actually take care of it because they might not be there next year. It's all screwed up, man.
Right.
My grandfather's turning over his grave like big time.
You guys pointed this out in your article too. These programs were created so that we could get our young men fit for war. Yeah. And now said programs have made 17, what does it say? I think 17 of 24 people now do not qualify.
That's correct.
Military service because of obesity and underlying health conditions.
Yeah, if you go to mission readiness, I mean, they've done a really great job. This is, when Barack Obama was president, the 4 kind of top generals really did some research with a couple of academic institutions, and they really classified, the diet-related conditions of young fighting age military people to be one of the biggest national security threats that we were facing of our time, right? That whole notion of a volunteer military, and you can have 2/3 of recruits show up wanting to enlist, wanting to volunteer, and having to be turned away. And the interesting thing is so many of these kids come from rural areas of poverty, right? So they're looking at the military as their big chance.
Right.
They want to serve their country, but then they're also going to be stable. And then they get turned away. And then they have to go back to an ever-failing urban system where the economic condition was turned on its head. And it's not like a bunch of like evil, greedy people got together and said, let's do this. We figured out a way to make money. It really was a national security thing. Back at that time, America was very fit. We were eating whole foods. Most people were cooking. Close to 45% of people were farmers or in the farming industry. That we took a look at World War I and World War II and said, okay, now that we know that I don't know if you guys know this, but it's kind of like World War I was first called the war to end all wars because it was so horrible. They're like, let's make sure this never happens again. 2 decades later, boom. It's because a bunch of rich white guys were in charge. But it's like that whole audacity of thinking that you can prevent global conflict when you're not looking at all of the underlying things that cause conflict in the first place. Extreme prejudices, age-old religious conflicts, whatever it might be, disparities. Forgotten people are so easily leveraged by these maniacal leaders. Look what's happening today, right? But once they were convinced that World War III was likely, especially with this like nuclear threat thing happening now, they really studied why were we able to prevail in those first 2 conflicts. It was the side that was able to field, produce, and ship. Basically, grow, produce, ship, field, and get to the troops the most food, fuel, and ammunition. Like those were the 3 things. So when we were convinced that World War III was inevitable, everybody went all in on we have to produce as much food as we can. Now that we created processed food, which started with C rations, it's like, wow, we can deliver 5,000 calories in a 12-ounce tin to a soldier in the field. It can be raining salt water and the tin's going to keep the food fresh. They're going to get their 5,000 calories. They're going to burn it off because they're marching and carrying like a 100-pound pack and all that stuff. But what a miracle we can feed the world. So that whole system and the public policy that put that system into place was actually out of good intent. It was, you know, how do we protect ourselves from this next horrible thing that's going to happen, because we can't trust ourselves to avoid it, right? Or, you know, but now it is kind of evil. It wasn't created out of evil.
Right.
What's happened, and it gets back to your question earlier, Shanita, when you said, wow, this food system that we have was actually kind of designed in the 40s, and here we are, it's 2020. What's the deal? People are making money off of it. You know, it's and it's a whole power thing. The whole system is this power system that really consolidates ownership of it into the hands of very few. To the extreme benefit of very few, and for quite frankly, to the detriment of so many of the rest of everybody else, right? So it's a nutty thing. I'm sorry. You ask me what time it is, I'll tell you how a clock is built.
You're good. So the thing that we chatted about this via email. So here in town locally, I'm doing the USDA produce process. So I've got something squirrely is going on. So our supplies are getting weird. But I basically was getting 200 boxes on a Thursday, and I was taking them to Kansas City, Kansas, and then I had 300 boxes in Kansas City, Missouri. Now I can only really get to the 300 in Kansas City, Missouri. The issue that I'm kind of annoyed with is that they're changing the program in September. Two things that they're doing that bother me. One, they want to add canned meat and dairy. Two, they want the people to physically come and get them. So we have developed with our Urban League here in town an amazing group of volunteers who know that there are seniors and there are people in this city, in our urban area, that do not have vehicles, can't get out, so they come and they pick up the boxes and they deliver them to the doors for us. So they're saying, nope, you can't do that anymore. The individual people have to physically come and get the box. How is that possible when people don't have cars, are relying on public transportation? You know, the issue that we have in our 3rd district area, there's maybe 2 grocery stores. So if you're a single mom with multiple children, you got to get your kids together, you got to get on this bus, and then you got to go down and get on this other bus, and then you got to get to the grocery store, and then you got to get the shopping done, and then you have all the kids, and you got to get your groceries, your bags, your kids on this bus and then on the other bus. Rain, snow, sleet, or shine.
Yeah, in 2 states where COVID is alive and well.
Right. Yeah. And then people say, well, why don't they Uber? Because then the mom has to take the car seats. So she's got to bring them in the grocery store. You got a basket with children, a basket.
Yeah, but it's like that's insane. How can somebody say something like that? It's like, Uber, are you fucking crazy? It's like, how many meals does that take off the table?
Exactly.
You've seen those food boxes. Those food boxes ain't a month's worth of food.
Right.
You know, it's not enough. It's supplemental. It's supplemental, man. So it's just not going to take care of the needs. It's the whole notion of, you know, the thing that really drove me nuts and caused us to found Wholesome Wave in the first place was when I hit that wall, the $2 wall. The average family of 4 in 1999, when they ran out of SNAP in the middle of the month, had $2 to spend on dinner for all 4 people. It's like, you know, so you know, there are people I'd have, fairly affluent white people saying, well, you know, vegetables are the cheapest thing in the world. And I'm like, no, they're not. Ramen noodles, instant rice, you know, dried beans. How exciting is that? You know, condensed milk, you know, cream of mushroom, cream of celery, cream of chicken soup, chock full of highly processed, carbohydrates, you know, the stuff that converts into glucose instantly. So it's like, so here's the meal, right? It's like full box minute rice, 2 cans of cream of something soup, you know, um, you know, and that's your dinner,
And if
right?
you're lucky, maybe you got a bag of frozen vegetables that's really just like stems.
Yeah,
And
maybe, right? So you try to get that in there to do the best that you can, but those calories, it's like a 350, 450 calorie meal. Your body only needs about 70 calories of glucose an hour, 90 calories of glucose an hour, depending on your size and your metabolism. So your body takes the glucose it needs so your cells can divide and multiply. And all the glucose that's left over goes to fat stores. Fat cannot be converted back to glucose. So, it explains why people are overweight and malnourished at the same time. It's very simple.
right.
But people don't understand that. And it's like $2. So it's like, if you're even going to have the argument that all someone needs to do, well, bus token is like $2.50, so someone can go get the broccoli. The whole, it's really the food desert concept really gives me a headache, because grocery stores are not in those communities simply because those community members can't afford to shop the entire store. Why set up a full service grocery store where your profit model relies on you to sell a lot of high valuable perishable product, keyword perishable? You don't want to throw it away. You want to sell it all. When you can't sell it, why show up?
Right. And then
It's crazy to me. And then it's like, okay, if someone takes that $2.50 and gets a bus token, you just took 4 meals off the table. Actually, you took 5 meals off the table to get somebody to broccoli that they can't afford anyway. So there's so much wrong-headed thinking in it. But that whole notion of having somebody get in an Uber to pick up their food box, come on.
And then people say here, well, this is something we deal with here. They say, well, the stores in the urban areas charge more because of theft. I was like, yes, because every poor person is thinking, let's go to the grocery store and steal avocados. Like, no, that's not more expensive.
But they don't charge more because of theft. They charge more because they know that they're going to sell less of their most profitable product, and that's meat, fish, high value dairy. Not a hell of a lot of half and half being sold at a corner store, on the west side of Chicago. And produce, fruits and vegetables. You make a lot of margin on that, but you got to sell it fast. You got to turn it over. It's a perishable product. So if you're going to show up, you have to charge more. And frankly, there's also this thing, like a lot of people say that a lot of those corner stores and bodegas are predatory, and truly some are, but many of them are just a victim of the supply chain. We're set up for like volume, especially now that we have all these superstores, right? So you look at a pallet of bananas. So it's a pallet of 40-pound cases of bananas. I think it's something like 80 cases of bananas or 60 cases to a pallet, something like that. And they're like $12 a box, right? The minute you split the pallet, it's now $18 a box. Mm-hmm. And if you split the case, it's like $15 for a half case. So you're basically paying $30 for a $12 case of bananas. What bodega is going to buy a pallet of bananas?
Right.
And they split the case, right? They don't need a whole case of bananas. So it's why you go into a bodega and a banana's like $3, And it's why so many of them just don't carry it, because they can't play in that game where the supply chain favors people who can take the pallet. So there's so many screwed up things about it.
Yeah, sure.
But I think it's a lot of opportunity for small businesses, and
we have a nonprofit here that in the specific food desert areas, they put they're like small produce stands.
Mm-hmm.
The grocery stores, they're like
nice,
right at the register, so you can get them right there, and it might have like some romaine, some red peppers, but not a lot. There might be 3 heads of romaine.
Well, I kind of like that. It's in the impulse buy area. It's kind of like, oh, wow, vegetables.
Right.
I think I'll take me one of them red peppers.
Right. Or I might get an apple instead of this bag of chips.
Yeah.
Like small changes. And I do like that. So I don't know. I just feel frustrated. I don't know what we can do.
Well, I think, our community, chefs for one, is Having good common sense conversations with folks that, change is really in all of our hands. We don't have to be consumers beholden to this particular system. I mean, we do have to figure out how we work with our neighbors that are struggling with seriously low income, to just help them be in a position where they understand the power that they actually hold. When you look at, like, last year, I think we were like somewhere around 41 million people on SNAP, spent $60 billion. But these SNAP consumers, these Americans who rely on SNAP, they have no idea they have that power. All they know is they're barely getting food on the tables. They don't feel powerful at all, right? So it's like, who's the Obama campaign community organizer that can actually help people understand that you can actually let your voice be heard, but you're likely going to have to gather with other community members that are in the same condition that you are, and really start understanding that some of the people that are getting into office because you don't want to take one of your part-time job days off of work because it's not worth voting, because no one listens, your vote doesn't count anyway. That youth and that underserved community vote put Obama in office by landslide. It was that whole community organizing effort. If we can mobilize that for a political campaign, and electing a Black president is as important. Helping people struggling with poverty get good food on the table is absolutely as important as what happened when Barack Obama got elected. It's that important.
Right.
It's that essential, right?
About that administration. And so the one thing that I enjoyed about that administration is that they took a stance on some of these food issues. That was Michelle Obama's initiative.
Yeah.
And in the garden,
really bright.
Working on the My Plate program, working and talking to the big box grocery stores about pricing and about the availability of items that they allowed on SNAP. I think that, they made some really good strides, and it just seems like after that administration was over, the school lunches kind of went back to.
Oh no, it's called death by executive order, man.
Yeah, I mean, like my kid, my little one will not eat school lunch. She's like, it makes my stomach hurt.
Yeah, we didn't eat school lunch. School lunch sucked when I was a kid. My mom made our lunch, and we took food, and she just didn't trust it, nor should anybody, frankly. But anyway, I think that's so many nonprofit funders, foundations, the people that support, strong grassroots political campaigns. They're as disorganized and disaggregated as anybody. It's almost like, George Floyd has to die before they finally say, wow, we actually maybe need to look at this and do something about this. How do we fund organizations to actually get under the hood of centuries of intentional disadvantaging, for lack of a better term, right? How do we get under the hood of that and make that happen? They have all these pet things that they kind of want to fund. To me, it's like, if you can help people understand, even though they're struggling with poverty, they rely on federal benefits, they rely on Medicaid, they rely on SNAP, that they're this powerful consumer voice, and that their vote does count. And start. It's so funny, when Tom Colicchio and the guys at Environmental Working Group did the congressional scorecard. What is it called? Oh gosh. Oh man. My 62-year-oldness is coming forward. Oh my God. I'll think of it in a moment. But anyway, it's this amazing thing that they created where they scored every member of Congress. And you learn this at Boot Camp, Erica. You're going to be learning it as well. Shanita, is, they score them on how they vote on food issues. They took it from like the oil and the natural gas industry, because those industries score candidates, every single person that runs for office down to the local level. They have a scorecard on everybody on where they stand on energy issues. So it's like they created this thing around food issues, but it's mostly marketed to the enlightened kind of 5%, right? To 15% of the American public, where it's like you take that information and put it in the hands of a pissed off mutter on the west side of Chicago, or in Notasulga, Alabama, and say, this person who's running for office in your local district has voted to take free lunch off of the table for your child. You're going to take that day off work, as financially difficult as it is, and you're going to show up and you're going to vote for somebody other than that person, right? There's a lot of opportunity for us to help people understand that, if you're into, pro-life, if you're a pro-lifer, if you're anti-abortion for religious reasons, you can be that and be a good person. If you're pro-choice for philosophical reasons, right, around human rights, right, you can be that and be a good person. But it's like one of the most polarizing. People are like, I'm going to vote on somebody whether they're pro-life or pro-choice. If somebody votes to take free lunch off of the table for a kid whose family's struggling with poverty, they're an asshole. Period. That's it. There's nothing good about that person. Okay. So if they're going to vote to do that, what else are they going to vote or not vote for that's in the interest of the people who really should be electing our leaders, right? So few people now participate in the democratic process, and that's why we have these tool-headed idiots basically running our country.
Well, and it's funny that you brought up the whole voting and the scorecard. And I know many people haven't watched the press conference that Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer did last week. Last maybe Thursday before they went back in negotiations.
Yeah, I missed that. We had the power outage.
Yeah. So one of the things that they talked about is one of the differentiating issues between the Republican package and what the Democrats have put on the table that had been approved. They had $60 million to address the 4 million people in this country who are food insecure now due to COVID. Right. The Republicans countered with $250,000. Not 250 million.
Yeah.
They went from 60 million to $250,000. And like Nancy said, who do they think that who are we serving with $250,000?
Well, it gets to the whole ruse of the food box thing too. That it's just Mitch McConnell could relate to this because he comes from Kentucky. It's like, if it looks like a rat and it smells like a rat, it's a fucking rat. When you look at the food box thing, I mean, what they're trying to do they're transitioning the meat, the canned meat, the dairy, into those boxes, because they're eventually going to transition it, and it's going to have sugar juices. It's going to have less vegetables. And the vegetables are going to be real simple, like potatoes, sweet potatoes, and onions. You're not going to see the leafy greens and a lot of the things that are in there right now, because they're really trying to bail out specialty crop farmers, green bean farmers, lettuce farmers, kale farmers, folks that are growing good, diverse crops, tomato farmers. They're transitioning it to the food box that they want to replace food stamps with. And these are the food boxes that First Nations peoples, tribal nations get stuck with, that don't provide them. First of all, they're not culturally appropriate whatsoever. There's no choice whatsoever. You got to take whatever the hell is in the box. Secondly, it's devoid of what you could call a balanced meal. And again, because it's supplemental, you're leaving people with little or no income. In some Native American reservations, the average annual income is $3,600 a year. It's
flew about that last week. Yeah.
It was
it's
very
crazy, right? So it's like you give them a box of that junk, and you wonder why. Actually, Native American communities are suffering at the very highest rate of hospitalization and death by COVID, because they're just so remote from any hope of ever being able to have any kind of a democratic food system that'll act in their favor. It's tough stuff, But I think this readjustment, from going from someone, like an Obama administration to the current administration, is a real backlash that is as painful as it was. It really did rip the Band-Aid off of the fact that America is a racist nation. There's a lot of racism here. There's a lot of power holding and brokering that it's actually not even. I don't want to offend anybody by saying this. I almost don't think it's racism as much as it's just like, when you're greedy for power, anybody who you think is less than you don't give a shit whether they live or die. I mean, it does. And to a lot of these folks, it doesn't matter the color of anybody's skin, just as long as they have all the money and they have all the power, right? So in that whole notion of just suppressing other people, and the ego of that, there's a greed in that. There's a greed in that where the way you can assert yourself over somebody else is a form of currency to you, right? It's just there are a lot of people who believe in that in this country, and we needed to know that. We needed to know how bad it is.
The vehicle of food and nutrition is something that we as culinarians hold so dear to our heart. That the idea of food and people having access to food has become so freaking political. Like I don't know how to even wrap my little novice to this whole movement brain around it. I just don't. I don't.
Yeah, I think again, it's like the community organizer thing, helping people understand they have more power than they do in this in the environment that they're stuck in, but also that food is more than just this fuel, this thing. Okay, check the box. They got a box of food. We're done with them. We don't have to deal with them. It was cheap. Awesome. We save money because we're buying it all out of a scaled system. It's like depriving people of quality food is like depriving people of quality love. It's like try depriving people of music, right? It's like, the ability to express yourself and dance and listen to the music that drives your soul. It's like the act of feeding people is like, it's a way of loving somebody, right? So these values come along with the quality of food that we're making available to neighbors of ours who are on hard times, whether they're there because they're part of a structurally broken system that's had them disadvantaged for generations, or somebody who recently fell on hard times.
Right.
Your ability to love your family through food should not be determined by your income. It's an inalienable right to be able to have the freedom to love who you choose, to worship who you choose, to make sure that your family is safe and that they are well. And when you deprive people of the tools to actually be able to do that, it's a wonder why our health system is so screwed up, and we're spending $1.4 trillion a year to treat the top 4 diet-related diseases. And if we actually took that treatment money and gave a portion of it to people that are low income so that they could spend it on the healthy food their family should be eating, 30 years from now, maybe we'd only be spending, $250 billion on healthcare or less, right? We just got our priorities backwards, and if anyone's going to do something about it, I suppose it's chefs, women chefs, because that whole girls rule the world thing,
Hey, So I wanted to ask you one question. How can someone donate to your nonprofit or be involved in with you? Is there any kind of links that we can put up, or
Oh yeah, cool. Yeah, thank you for that. Wholesomewave.org. So it's WHOLESOMEWAVE.org. Yeah, and we have a donate button there. But the interesting thing is there now are, because one of the things that we did as Wholesome Wave, we really kind of created the movement around doubling SNAP for fruits and vegetables, and we wanted to make sure that it was a transaction. We actually raised donor money and created coupons and tokens so that when people spent it on fruits and vegetables, the farmer got full price. There's nothing more provable than a transaction, right? So the transaction is powerful, right? So we proved that it worked, and now it's legislated. It was called the Food Insecurity Nutrition Incentive Program in the 2014 Farm Bill, and it's now the Gus Schumacher Nutrition Incentive Program, named after my late co-founder, Gus Schumacher. And it's a permanent part of the Farm Bill. But if you go to USDA website under NIFA, it's the National Institute of Food and Agriculture, you can find organizations all over the country that are running programs in urban and rural communities that are drawing down that federal funding. We don't work as much with SNAP doubling anymore, so now we're doing produce prescriptions. We'd like to have a similar impact on health policy that we were able to have on agriculture policy. Imagine if you're on Medicaid and you can have something like fruits and vegetables reimbursed by Medicaid. Save your receipt, get your money back.
I need you to tell me how to do that here. Definitely.
Yeah, well, so basically, if people would like our programs in their area, connecting us to community-based organizations and donors who are interested in us coming in and teaching, because basically what we do, we're kind of like a, kind of like a Pied Piper in a way. It's like organizations that are passionate about it don't know how to do it. If donors bring us in, we teach them how to do it. We give them the tools. The only thing that we ask is when we go away, because we're there anywhere from the first year to 3 years, depending on how difficult it is to work in that area, and what some of the unique challenges might be. But we're the nonprofit that goes away, and hopefully leaving in systems in place now like GusNIP so people can draw that money down and then take care of their own community. That's kind of our thing. We don't like to stick around. We don't like to seem like the people who are riding into your community with our solution to your problem. We've got a concept. We can teach you how to do it. Call it whatever the hell you want. Just do us a favor and continue to share the outcomes of the work so that we can advocate for the policy. So any good community-based organization that's in your area that has a donor base that's interested in the work, give us a call. Wholesomewave.org. We're here. Ain't going nowhere.
Okay, so before we go and do our last little 10-minute wrap up, I do want you to just elaborate on that food prescription program a little bit more. You've alluded to it twice, but you haven't really given us.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Well,
how that works, because that's important, and I want people to go back and watch this later and later and later and later and later to know about.
Cool. Yeah. Sometimes I'm my own worst enemy with that stuff. So what we do is we raise private money from foundations. We have two amazing sponsors right now that are really interested in this work, and that's WW, formerly known as Weight Watchers. Oprah bought them and trying to turn them into more of a wellness company. Naked Juice, the Kresge Foundation, groups like that. We have a variety of financial supporters, and what we do is we take that private money and we partner with usually a federally qualified community health center or a system of community health centers or a public hospital, with the doctor, the nurse practitioner, the person who usually says, oh boy, you passed out at one of your 3 part-time jobs, you have high hemoglobin A1C, oh, guess what, you have diabetes, here's your medicine, right? What we're trying to do is get somebody before they have the diabetes. They actually go in to see that same prescriber who says, you actually have the indications you have high blood pressure, you're overweight, you have a high hemoglobin A1C. If you don't change your diet and exercise a little more, the next time I see you, you might have, type 2 diabetes. Here's a prescription for the fruits and vegetables you need to eat to stop eating so much complex simple carbohydrates, and that the nutritionists will help coach you, so they get nutrition education. They get the benefit where they can actually take the coupon, the produce prescription coupon. Right now we have a smartphone app where it can be done digitally as well. People can take the prescription, buy the fruits and vegetables they need. To have their prescription refilled, they have to go back every couple of months and be measured, show progress, adjust their food plan, all the things that happen after it's too late. You get the diabetes, you get the free medicine. Your kidney starts to fail, you get Medicaid pays for your kidney transplant or your dialysis. You have to have a non-traumatic limb amputation. It's paid for, right? How about paying for the food so that all that other bad shit doesn't happen at the back end? So that's the idea.
I love that idea. Erica, did you have any more questions online? Because for some reason they're not showing up over here.
No, all of a sudden it like completely is off my page. So I know we'll work that little glitch out.
What I'll say is, if people had questions like specifically for me, if you guys email those to me, I'll answer them and send them back to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
Because you guys have a blog too, right? So I mean, you could, yeah.
Yep. I posted it gets posted to like Spotify and all that later. And it also goes to my website. This video will go on my website with all of your amazing accolades and things that you've done.
Yeah. That just goes, the minute I won one of those damn awards, it's like, I call it the There Goes the Neighborhood Award.
I just don't know, when do you sleep? I mean,
I don't.
Family time. When do you know what I mean? Because you are just busy.
Yeah, sleep's overrated. I just it's energizing. I mean, it's like when does any chef or good restaurateur sleep? You're always worrying about something, right?
Right, but that was a pre-COVID thing, though. So I was going to ask you like my therapy question, but that's the thing that I left behind, is that I'm a much better me now that I'm forcing myself to go to bed, and I feel myself being more creative and more introspective and more thoughtful in ways before. Because I would definitely, prior to COVID, I mean, I'm going 100 miles an hour till I hit the wall, down to recover, and then back at it until I hit that wall again.
We're a funny lot when it comes to self-care. We're a funny lot when it comes to that. I will say, it's like, I am good about, I'm not getting any younger. So my bedtime is like usually between like 9 and 10:30. But I'm up around like 5 o'clock,
Yes.
And it's awesome because a lot of other people are turned off, and I can set my day up in a way that it's kind of like when I used to have to ride the train. There's no way my wife and I could afford to live in the city in the early days when I was in New York. So I did the train thing. It was like a 2-hour train ride, kind of door to door between the train and the subway, and I would use it to set my day up, do all my mise en place lists and the lists for everybody else, because I was chef de cuisine. So it's like
people who need a list.
Yeah, and a lot of people really need a list. It's like a mistake a lot of chefs make is not realizing that you actually do need to help think for that person, and giving them a list is a good start. And the way to train them not to need the list is to start to leave stuff off of it intentionally.
That's what I call myself. I'm the head thinker in charge. Okay.
Yeah.
Think I'm doing all the thinking. I want you to do what I thought out for you. Don't think on your own.
Yeah, it's good.
A mistake.
Yeah, good stuff. But for me, the 5 a.m. is like the train ride. Yeah.
And I got that from her. When I was her apprentice, she'd be like, your list isn't done. I know you're not leaving. I was just going to the bathroom. I wasn't leaving. She's like, good. because I don't know who you think is doing that list. That's yours.
Yeah, I don't know. That thing you just said about going to the bathroom, if I had a nickel for every time somebody came in thinking they wanted to be in the restaurant business, and they'd say, I got to go to the bathroom when the shit hits the fan. And then we'd all look at each other like, she's not coming back. She's not coming back. They went to the bathroom and they never came back.
Before your shift, you go to the bathroom before dinner service. Or you go to the bathroom at the end of dinner service. You're not a chef if you're in the middle of the service talking about you need to go to the bathroom. What are you talking about?
Well, good stuff, man.
Okay, so last thoughts. COVID is the big reset. We're all resetting, pivoting, transitioning. We don't even say the new normal anymore, because I honestly believe deep in my soul that we are not ever going back to life as it was pre-COVID. It's
I agree.
Going to happen. And for our industry especially, it's a little bit of a reckoning, and there are some things that just needed to fall away in this system. So that's a good thing. It's a sad thing because it's going to be the death of some things that we've loved, but it's for the greater good of the food community. But personally,
I think so too.
What are you and I don't think you've paused. I feel like you've just been working. But one thing you want to just leave pre-COVID, and there's something that professionally or in this time that you're like, yeah, I don't think I want to be doing that anymore. I want to do something else.
You know, it's an exceptional question, but I have to say, I have been and will continue to do what I'm doing because I really love it and I really believe in it. It's actually intensified as a result of COVID for obvious reasons, unfortunately. I think, you know, I don't know, man. To me, I was so unsurprised by it because I'm aware of this whole notion that we're really just visitors here. And, you know, I was kind of like stoked, you know, it's like, I'm not a like uber religious person. I'm a spiritual person. I do believe we have a soul. I believe what happens to it after we pass has everything to do with how we live now. But I always had a lot of fun every time they elected a new pope, you know, because it's just like, you know, popes say the darndest things. But, you know, this one, I'm digging this guy. You know, it's like he comes out and says one of his first statements about COVID-19 is that that he believes it's interrelated with what we're doing to the climate, right? I do believe that we're visitors here, and that the Earth has a life of its own. If we don't get our shit together, we're going to get evicted, right? You know, and I think more and more people are becoming aware of it. And frankly, I think that so many people have learned that they actually can cook because they're cooking at home.
I feel so much more appreciated.
Yeah, amen. You know, and I love that. It's like, you know, because so I think whatever the new normal is, that more people are cooking at home and actually having a much more intimate relationship with their food, other than, oh my God, this is delicious. I mean, that's a great experience, but it's a surface level thing. It's like when you've actually stewarded that dish from raw ingredients to the finished thing, and then you can say, oh my God, this is delicious, it takes on a whole new meaning, right? So it's this more intimate relationship with food.
For love.
And it's the love, but also it's bringing families together more, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
and
that's how we grew up. I grew up at the dinner table with my grandparents, my mom, my aunties, my uncles, and we enjoyed the food. We had great conversation. We knew what was going on between each other. And I think now with COVID, there's a lot more of that.
Yeah.
It needs to be even more of that.
So I think
a lot of people growing gardens in their backyard. They're growing their food.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think
nervous.
I think the good news in that is that people are going to start to actually, millions of new people who are enlightened eaters, restaurant goers, whatever, millions of people now are going to have the type of relationship with food where they're actually going to begin to understand what we're saying when we tell them that food policy needs to change, right? Because that when you're cooking your own food and you're sourcing your own food and you're making mistakes and going through the frustration of that, you start to understand how valuable food is when you fuck it up. You know, I mean, you know, and it just, I think we would be foolish, us, our community, chefs, all of us, if we didn't realize that we have an opportunity now to get the attention of these folks in a way that could actually change the way people vote at the ballot box. Food policy action, I figured it out. Yay. That's it. So FTA.org is the website where you can go on and see how any congressperson in the House and the Senate are scored based on how they vote on food issues. But anyway, I think that can really be a movement now. And just like a lot of chef friends of mine, their social media is on fire. They can't cook in their restaurants, but people are really, they have more followers than ever because they're showing people how to cook, you know, so that people can have restaurant type experiences at their house. What a great time to have a conversation.
Exactly.
About this stuff, you know. These are important subjects, you know, and these folks are going to listen to us because, what's that insurance commercial? We know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two. You know?
Right.
You know, we have a real opportunity to share the love, the knowledge, our awareness of what's broken about the system and how everyday Americans, you know, can just engage in it in a way that can actually change it. Because if we don't, we're going to get evicted, man. I'm telling you.
We agree. Well, thank you for coming on and having a conversation with us. Literally, I could probably talk to you for another hour. I hope you don't regret giving me your email, but I definitely
not at all
scribble down notes, and I have thought and follow up. And I'm working on this in my own community and with my own nonprofit, really trying to really change people's relationship with food.
Excellent.
How they think about it, how they approach it, and educating people on how it really impacts your body. I mean, that's why I can never. My trainers hate me. I can never lose weight. I'm like, I'm not eating that. I love food entirely too much to eat a boiled chicken breast. Right. Not happening. So I'm going to be fat if that's how we're going to approach this. You guys are going to have to come up with another plate. That's not working.
Well, go get them, guys. I'm telling you, man. This is our opportunity.
Yes.
All right.
So thank you so very much. Have a wonderful evening.
Yeah. Thank you. You too. Take care.
Bye.